In it, you could succumb to speed fever without being battered by the wind. You could close its windows against dust or rain. You could use it to fetch home the groceries, to drive to the golf club or the railroad station, to cool off on hot evenings, to reach a job many miles distant and otherwise inaccessible, right? Like you can get employment that you couldn't get before. To take the family out for a day's drive or a weekend excursion, to pay an impromptu visit to friends 40 or 50 miles away, or, as innumerable young couples were not slow to learn, to engage in private intimacies. One of the cornerstones of American morality had been the difficulty of finding a suitable locale for misconduct. Now this cornerstone was crumbling, and if the car was also a frequent source of family friction, no, Junior, you're not taking the car tonight, as well as a destroyer of pedestrianism, a weakener of the church-going habit, a promoter of envy, a lethal weapon when driven by heedless, drunken, or irresponsible people, and a formidable convenience for criminals seeking a safe getaway, it was nonetheless indispensable. Furthermore, a car was now less expensive to maintain than in the days when the cost of successive repairs might mount up to a formidable sum each year, and it could be bought on easy payments. The installment selling of cars, virtually unknown before World War I, spread so rapidly that by 1925, over 3/4 of all cars, new and old, were being sold this way, even old cars. Over these same years, more and more roads had been paved, as public officials discovered that appropriations for highway surfacing were no longer considered mere favors to the rich, and garages and filling stations had multiplied. The result of all these developments was a headlong rush to buy cars on the part of innumerable people to whom the idea of becoming automobile owners would have seemed fantastic only a few years before. In 1915, there were less than 2.5 million cars registered in the U.S. By 1920, there were 9 million. By 1925, 20 million. By 1930, 26.5 million. So they had 11 million in 5 years, then they had 6.5 million in 5 years. So it's went like that. But we should have the right to allocate those resources and then go through the painful readjustment afterwards once we all have cars. We should have that right. So it was that the years between 1918 and 1930 introduced to America a long series of novelties which are now such familiar features of the American scene that one might think we had always had them. Automatic traffic lights, concrete roads with banked curves, 6-lane boulevards, one-way streets, officially numbered highways, tourist homes, tourist cabins, roadside diners, hot dog stands, peanut stands, fruit and vegetable stands, filling station after filling station, and used car lots. Now it spends a paragraph talking about the development of the first highways, and it quotes Harpers magazine, Harpers Weekly or whatever. The time would come, Harpers predicted, when a motorist with a long drive before him would ease into the fast traffic on a townless highway, and presently would be spinning along with, quote, less anxiety and more safety at 60 miles an hour than he used to have in the old road town confusion at 25, end quote. When that day came, they said, the automobile would have become, quote, an honor to our mechanical civilization and not a reproach to it. So they looked forward to the days when we could go 60 miles an hour without obstruction and get where we needed to go. They didn't foresee that there'd be 60 miles an hour would be the speed that we're moving nearly a century later. The average speed on our roads is about 60 miles an hour maybe on the freeways. 70, 75, 80 outside the cities. 50, 55, 45 maybe inside the cities. 20 during traffic hour. So we kind of been standing still on that. I think that's because the government's in charge of our roads. That's the end of the quotes from The Big Change. Next, from Lords of Creation, also by Frederick Lewis Allen. Coming from page 401 now. Section 3 of the chapter called The Vicious Spiral. Let us try to analyze what was happening in those dolorous years of 1930 and 31 and 32. skipping a paragraph. We must remember in the first place the continued existence of various distortions in the American economy, which had made the recovery and prosperity of the country during the 1920s an astonishing achievement against odds. We must remember how curiously our foreign trade was balanced, that the only way in which we had been able to permit Europe to buy our goods was by lending her huge amounts of capital, and that obviously this could not keep up indefinitely. And I've already mentioned how some of our invested capital went into Germany, some of it went into Japan, some of it went into Italy. I think Italy was our biggest of those three. I think we invested more in Italy than the others, but I don't know for sure. Moving one paragraph down. But it is doubtful if any of these factors, or all of them together, quite explain a breakdown as cumulative and appalling as that which actually took place. Let us look for other clues. One of these clues is the increase in efficiency which was being brought about by improved methods of manufacture and of business, and especially by the machine, above all by the power-driven machine. As we've already noted, he mentioned this in chapter 8 of the book, machines were constantly replacing men. A given number of people were becoming able to produce and distribute more and more goods. There's no need to present specific illustration of this fact. The technocrats of 1932 deluged the country with them. But it may not be amiss to remark that the tendency towards technological unemployment, about which the technocrats talk so furiously, was not confined to industry. Consider, for example, how the output of American farms had increased by the use of huge reapers and combines, and also by the spread of knowledge about better farming methods. Or consider how machinery and improved organization had likewise speeded up work in business offices. That the machine was an instrument for the production of plenty is undeniable. But that its increasing use was attended by economic strain is also undeniable. I wonder about that, but it goes over the idea that if 20 men lose their job because a textile updates its manufacturing methods, they have to go find jobs at filling stations or whatever. It says, to meet this, the American economy had to expand. There had to be constant growth. I mean, that's just obvious. So he's not pointing to any cause of it there, and it's really a mundane discussion he goes in. So I just skipped down a bit for what we got out of that for the efficiency note. Skipping to page 429 now. Even when Roosevelt, in April, issued an executive order prohibiting the export of gold, and Wu Din, Secretary of Treasury, formally admitted that the United States was off the gold standard, as in reality it had been ever since March 4th, the financiers did not seem unduly dismayed. J.P. Morgan himself smilingly faced a group of reporters at 23 Wall Street and gave his approval to the move. Now, there was a situation where the Russian government sold a whole bunch of savings bonds during Khrushchev's time to the Russian people. And the Russian people bought up a bunch of savings bonds in the hopes that 5 or 10 years later, whichever, they would get more than their money back. And at a pig farm in Siberia, Khrushchev announced that the government was defaulting on all this debt. And he said something about the capitalistic slime bags who wouldn't understand or whatever. And he said the patriots of the nation will understand this is a good move for everyone or whatever it was. And he got a standing ovation. So I think that phenomenon is similar to this phenomenon here. We go off the gold standard and one of the biggest, richest bankers in history smiles and approves. I think that's very similar. The country wanted action. Roosevelt gave it action. Throughout the spring of 1933, he showered recommendations and drafts of bills upon an astonished Congress, which followed his